Okay, so besides repairing DC jacks, the most common problem people seem to come in with is the problem with the AC adapter. So usually, almost universally, the problem is with the cable, and the cable's not working for some reason, and it's almost always damaged right in this area, because this is where it bends and this is where it flexes all the time, and it always breaks in this area. So when that happens, most people just go out and buy a new adapter. Now, for some laptops this is easy, and for others it's kind of a little bit more challenging because they have a smart pin which is designed not to make it difficult to buy replacement adapters, or they're very expensive, like $30. So there's actually a way how you can fix them, usually, sometimes. If you have another cable, like this, you want to replace, you somehow got your hands on another cable, and this one is damaged, then you can usually just take a hacksaw, or take a chisel, or take a knife. You could actually open these adapters up. They're actually not that difficult to open up, and it's not too hard. So you can just take a chisel or a knife and just slice open all around the AC adapter, and then it will just pop right open like this. I already did this one, so that's why I just clicked Kablosu. There you go. So this is an HP, but for the most part they all look very similar. There's two metal halves. Just a second. There's two plastic halves, there's two metal halves, and they're sealed shut with tape and with some screws. So now the cable is just soldered on right here. Those two right there, that's the cable soldered on. So most of the time, if you have a cable, all you have to do is simply solder this cable off and solder a new one on, and it will just come right off, and you could just replace it that simply, and you never have to buy yourself a new AC adapter. It's actually very simple. That just comes off just like that. Comes off like that. There you go. Now we have this. We just took the cable off. So all you have to do is just get yourself a new cable. You could replace this entire AC adapter. Many times if you have a broken one that died on the inside, you shouldn't throw it away. You should actually keep it, just so that if you order a new one and that one has a damaged cable someday, maybe a year later, then you can take the cable from your old one and replace it. So these cables, working ones, are actually very useful because they allow you to replace adapters for pretty much no cost at all, and it's actually very quick if you're handy with an iron. Besides that, there is actually another way how you can repair pretty much any AC adapter that you will get, and this is actually a little bit more tricky, but it comes down to just repairing the cable. So in almost all situations, the cable is actually damaged right here, like I said before. There's very few instances where the cable is damaged somewhere in here, unless you have like a cat or a rabbit or something chewing on it, and then the wire's exposed. Almost always the cable breaks wherever it's flexed the most, which is right in this area right here. So contrary to what people know, this plastic right here can actually come off. Well, it's not supposed to, but if you have a knife or some other tool, you could actually get it off and repair this actual jack, or this plug. Because the plug on its own, it's not made of plastic, it's made of metal, and there are solder points where you're supposed to solder wires onto the metal plug. And then this plug is wrapped around with a plastic covering. So if you have a knife, you can actually really quickly take this entire plastic covering on and repair the jack. So there's that. Usually you don't have to try to be very neat with it, because on the inside it's metal, and plastic can sometimes be kind of tough, and you just want to get it off. Right, so when you're done tearing apart the plastic from your plug, you end up probably having something like this. This is a broken plug, it's not repairable because the tip right here is broken off, but you can see kind of what it'll look like. Pull this back right here and try to do it. See, and that's just the cable running down, and it's soldered right onto the jack. A much better example of this actually is this. This is a plug from an HP DV6. Here you can see it. And if you look really closely, this part right here, this is the outer contact right here, and this is the ground, this is negative. The one on the side right here, this is the positive, and one on the center is for the smart pin. Most laptops might not have this, but HPs do, and you need it to turn your HP on. So it's important to note that whenever your cable is broken or it's not turning on, this jack right here cannot be damaged because it's made out of some very sturdy metal. So unless you damage the pin on the inside, no amount of flexing the cable can ever damage the jack or the plug. And the plug is what's the most important part. So if you're like a poor broke college student and you just damaged your laptop and you really need to repair it, this is something you can do. Strip all the plastic off of the jack and cut the cable off. So this is actually from here. Alright? This is, I cut the cable off already and I separated all the wires. This on the outside is the ground. This right here is in the middle and it's the positive. And this in the middle, in the very center right there, that's a smart pin. Now, once you have a multimeter, it's going to be very hard for you to get the polarity right and to know what goes where here, because for example, these aren't marked. They're not red, they're not blue, they're not green, they're not black. They're just all white and silver. So unless you have colored insulation, it's very hard to know what should go where. Now, you can tell what's supposed to go where just by looking on the bottom of your adapter. But you don't know which cable here is plus and which is ground. You can use a multimeter to find it out. But few people who, unless you're a hobbyist, you really won't have one. So the good news is that most laptops actually have a pair of diodes which are responsible on shorting out your adapter just in case you screwed up on the polarity and you plugged it into the laptop incorrectly. Your laptop will detect that, hey, something is wrong with this adapter. It's sending in polarity the opposite way than the way it should be, and it'll actually short out the adapter, and the adapter's mechanism inside will say, hey, I'm shorted out, so I'm going to shut down. It's going to shut down, and nothing is going to turn on, and hopefully nothing's going to be damaged. So even if you don't have a multimeter, you can pretty safely sometimes just guess. And unless you have 3 right here, if you have 2, then you could sometimes just solder them onto the jack, and you have a 50% chance of getting it right. But I strongly suggest that you just get a multimeter and try to measure it somehow. So when you have something like this, it's actually very simple. This part right here, but this, I know this is the ground, so this solders onto the outside. You can see it. Why is it so out of focus? You can solder it on right here. The center right here solders onto the center of the jack right there, and the outside right here solders onto the middle right there. When you do that and you can solder it on, and if you really have no money and you really don't even have a soldering iron, you could probably just tape it on. So if you could do that, then the jack would work. And you can plug that into your laptop and you can use the laptop for pretty much forever until, well, this breaks down. If you solder it on correctly, it should never break down. But if you just taped it on somehow because you need to get your homework out of your laptop, then it'll be long enough for you to do that, and you'll probably be able to go on Amazon and order a brand new adapter. So I'm going to show you really quick how to solder these things on and what it's pretty much going to look like when you're finished. Alright, so once we get that done, the only thing we have left to do is to insulate it. So you get some tape, or you get some electrical tape, or whatever kind of tape you can get. Just make sure that the contacts and the wires aren't touching each other and nothing's shorting out. Alright, so once you're done wrapping electrical wire around it in kind of not a very neat way, could have been better, but once you're done with that, the important thing is just to make sure that no exposed wire can touch any other exposed wire. And no, this should never be like a permanent fix, but this is something that should just get you going for a few days or as long as you need your laptop. Hopefully you can order a new one. As soon as we have this, the best thing to do immediately after you're done is test the inside and the outside of the actual plug, not the wires here, but the plug, to make sure that all the voltages that should be there are there after you've already plugged it in. And you should ideally do this before you stick it into your laptop, because who knows what you could have screwed up. So, but I've already done that. So for now, let's take out this laptop that I worked on a little while ago. There you go, it's a Dell. You just take this right here. Plug that in. Let's test it. There we go. And everything works. And this should get you going if you need to get files off your laptop to move them to something else. Or I've actually had people, friends of mine, who have used this kind of a plug for a very long period of time, over a year. This warning that you might get is simply a warning that says that the voltage that's on the center pin, it's called a smart pin in most adapters, isn't the voltage that this laptop expected. That voltage is only necessary to ID the type of adapter that you are using for the laptop. So some computers like a Dell, if it's the wrong voltage, they know that it's the wrong adapter. This isn't the correct adapter for this laptop. Other laptops like HP, who fortunately don't make laptops anymore, just won't turn on at all if you don't have the right adapter with the right voltage on the smart pin. And that could lead you to all sorts of wrong conclusions about why the laptop is not working. So this works, and this is something that anybody pretty much can do. All you need is a knife. Scrape the plastic off, or get the plastic off any other way. You need a soldering iron, a little bit of solder. Most of the time the jacks themselves already have solder on them, so you could probably get by without any solder. Soldering iron, a knife, and that's just about it. And you can fix almost any AC adapter whose wire is broken in the world. Because no matter how much people want to bend and twist the part next to the plug, you can never actually damage the plug itself unless you broke out the pin on the inside. That's if you even have a pin. Most don't. So if you ever have an AC adapter and you really need to fix it, and you really need to have it work right now, either you can't afford one, a new adapter, you can't find one, or it's taking too long and you need something from your laptop today, just go ahead and do something like this. It can take maybe about an hour, but it has a very high success rate. It almost always works. You can almost always get your laptop up and doing what it should be doing. Alright, I hope this helps someone.